Verhoeven Effect podcast. I'm Conlon.
And I'm Nathan.
We have another very special episode. We have the 2000 movie, The Way of the Gun. Oh, what a illustrious, promising time, the year 2000.
Yes.
um, Man, so many things before this time were labeled something something 2000, and then this is where it all went
Yep.
away.
That's where that disappeared.
I actually remember the other thing is that there was always like a lot of things that were 2020. Because I remember there was like a Phantom cartoon, but it was like it's like we can't do the old Phantom, so they made it like Phantom 2020, and then
Yeah.
there's I think there's Batman 2020. There's a lot of like the comic books that are like whatever 2020. So now
I just know I started feeling old when Blade Runner opened with Los Angeles 2019.
we're
There's flying cars and fire shooting into the air, and now we're like 5, 6 years after that. It's like, no, it didn't happen.
well, a fire shooting in the air, but it's not because if it's an oil derrick in the middle of Los Angeles.
Yeah. Yeah. Even though they do process oil in the middle of,
Yeah.
they pump it out of the ground in the middle of Los Angeles. So
Uh,
I didn't know that some of those buildings were fake.
oh,
They were
yeah.
just like fascias for oil pumping rigs.
That makes sense. um, so The Way a Gun came out September 8th, 2000. Very a financial failure, a commercial and critical failure. I think I just happened upon it because I think it was like $8 in a DVD bin. I was like, oh, I'll give that a go.
Yeah.
This is kind of like one of my favorite kind of like, yes, I think it's since become kind of a cult movie. I really don't hear anybody talk about it other than me, but like we've done a whole podcast on it before, but we'll do it again because I just think
Oh,
that.
yeah.
The director is Christopher McQuarrie, which he wrote The Usual Suspects, was huge at the time. Did you ever see Usual Suspects without knowing like the ending?
Yeah, the first time I watched it.
Okay, I only know just through comedies. I already knew the ending, so it was always a weird movie to me because basically you watch the movie, it's like, oh, so almost none of that happened. There's like the opening scene where they're pulling the bodies off the boat, and then there's like the interview scene, and that's the only thing you can trust is real, and then everything else is just a story.
No, I remember watching the Usual Suspects in my oh, it was like when Pulp Fiction came out,
Yeah,
and then it's like, oh, I'm watching Reservoir Dogs. And it's like, oh, I'm gonna watch the Usual Suspects because there wasn't any internet to, or maybe there was, but I didn't have it
yeah.
to guide me through this stuff. I was just like, these movies were kind of grouped together in the same thing. It's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna watch this. Yeah, so I watched the Usual Suspects like without any um, foreknowledge of what I was gonna see.
Okay, so the twist was not, or did you like the twist, or did you think it was bullshit?
No, I loved it. I thought it
Okay.
was great. I thought this is great. Did David Mamet write this? No. Okay, cool. It's like, oh, all right.
Yeah, because there's great dialogue and cool scenes in that movie, so it's like makes sense. It's like, yeah, let's give that guy a movie. So he made this, and then he basically was like out of Hollywood for like a decade
Yeah.
until Tom Cruise picked him up, and now he's like a huge success. So.
He did the first Jack Reacher Tom Cruise movie, the 2000, was that 2011?
Yeah, but he also
Yes.
he wrote Valkyrie, which was in 2008, and that was sort of his comeback as a writer.
Oh, okay.
But then he did the Jack Reacher movie. He directed a few of the Mission Impossible movies.
Okay.
Yeah, if you look at his filmography, he's got a lot of good. I think the only like bad one recently is he wrote that Mummy movie that was supposed to be the start of a whole franchise.
Oh, okay. But he just wrote it. So.
Yeah. See, he didn't direct it. I don't think so.
And he did the writing on Edge of Tomorrow, which
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
you read the source material that's from. It's like, man, he made a great script out of it. It was a little dense. And I always did like the first Tom Cruise Jack Reacher movie, mainly because Werner Herzog was in it. It's
Yeah, yeah.
just wild.
Well, he's great, especially you see in this movie. Is like taking like obviously what's not like a huge blockbuster movie, but then just like taking little moments and just making everything different, and it makes it seem way bigger and more important than like just your typical action movie.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, the James Caan, Benicio del Toro dialogues in this were like, yeah, that's amazing because that's James Caan's like super strength.
Yeah,
Because remember that the whole what was it? The whole speech he gave in the diner and Thief
yeah,
is like that's James Caan at his best.
yeah, yeah.
And
It's yeah the cinematic ghost of James Caan, where he's not the same character, but he's kind of the same dude.
yeah, yeah. The only reason I like the movie Thief is because of James Caan and
Yeah.
just his delivery.
Well, there's a lot of good things about Thief, but
Yeah, I mean there is, but it's like that's what really
yeah,
stands
yeah,
out is the, like he's completely believe you want that guy to like it's like I'm with this guy even though he is a thief as the title says. But yeah.
And also Christopher McQuarrie wrote the screenplay for Top Gun Maverick, which might have made just all its money on its own, but when it came out, it was like it's like the third biggest movie of all time. So
It was nice that it had that story though.
yeah,
I
yeah,
kind of liked the story in it. I mean, it was a little like, well, you knew it was going to be crazy, but
yeah,
I
yeah, yeah. I just love when they get in the F-14. It's like there's no fucking way, and then they're like, no, they're doing it, but then they make it, but then they also like put out the real thing. It was like, there's no way we can fight these fucking things with this piece of shit.
yeah. If it was maintained by the people that made it originally, like you might be able to like fool them. Splitting the throttles and pulling the wings back was pretty cool, but it's like
um
well, do you know the engines and the what was it? Someone explained that to me once. I forget. I was talking to someone who was knew about military aviation. He worked a lot in it, and he said, "Well, the engines in the Tomcat, it's the same engines in the B-1B. It's just 4 of them." I was like, "Really?" He's like, "Yeah, it's the same engines." I was like, "That's nuts." He goes, "Yeah, it was done that way for cost."
Oh,
But it's
okay.
like, didn't both of those planes like ridiculously maintenance heavy? And that, oh yeah, yeah, it wasn't good cost, but it was done so we could because they were both variable geometry
Yeah.
planes. Just one's a bomber and one's a fighter, but the B-1Bs are still in service. And it's like, oh, there's 4 engines from a Tomcat in those. That's nuts. It's crazy.
Well, yeah, that's the way the Navy did a lot of planes. Is like just get the biggest engine you can, so we can fly this thing off of a carrier in the middle of the ocean, and then
Yeah.
they didn't worry about turning speed or like necessarily how many armaments you can put on and stuff like that. Which that became why the F-15 and the F-16 were designed the way they were, so that like, oh no, actually you're doing a lot of dogfighting. Because like if you look up all of the stats on an F-14, it seems like, well, this thing's invulnerable, but then it's like super maintenance heavy. The swing wing stuff is not as like useful as it is, and that just automatically creates a weak point in your structure, like where it swings.
Yeah.
um and
Well, I
then
heard it was a response to the complaint about the F4
yeah,
because everyone had a version of the F4. The Navy had I think they had the most powerful F4
yeah,
because they wanted like the full like big blast afterburner. I don't
yeah.
know if that's true or not. That's how it was
No, yeah,
explained.
that's how the Navy like gas guns their airplanes. So.
But they said it's like, yeah, if this thing only had wings, like because it really had wings just to like support missiles.
Yeah, yeah,
If you look at the wing surface on that, it's very tiny
yeah,
compared to like an F-16 or even an F-14 or an F-18.
yeah.
And
And
it's
it
like,
was designed just to put missiles because there's no machine gun on an F4 Phantom.
yeah,
They later put them on. They had like little pods that that look like a missile, and that's where they put the gun because they realized, oh, I guess we need that because that's another one of those things they thought like, oh, they thought conventional ammo and cannons like, well, that's done with. It's all going to be missiles now, and then that ended up being like way more expensive and less effective. And it's like you just could have put more guns on the airplane
yeah,
and made it just as effective.
yeah. Missiles are like $500,000 a shot. Like bullets are really cheap. Compared.
um,
But yeah, that was always like the F4 Phantom to this day, like still holds some like performance, like 0 to Mach 1. Yeah, it was essentially a missile
yeah.
disguised as a plane.
Well, and then there's stuff with the F-14 where it's like, oh, you can engage enemies up to 15 miles away, and it's like, well, that's like technically true or something or whatever. Like, but it's like, but like in the rules of warfare, you can't engage an enemy at 50 miles and at 50 miles away if you don't know who they are. You can't just shoot at a blip on the radar because it's there.
Well, as the U.S. Navy found out with Iranian airliners, it's like, yeah, there's a reason you don't do that. There's a blip, fire everything. It's like, oh shit, we just shot down a 747. Oops. Hey, stop cheering, stop cheering. Why is there a news crew in here? Oh my god.
Which is why like the F-16 was created. It was like created specifically to be a dogfighter. Get in, see who you're fighting, and fight him. And it had like the best turning radius of any airplane, and it's been the most cost-effective airplane for a long time now. But now any of those modern planes with like that vector thrusting could outturn it because, but it's also way more expensive. But yeah,
Well, we're going to see how the F-16 does, because a lot of them are being, I think the Polish are training the Ukrainians to use them,
yeah.
and the Germans and the Poles are basically clearing their inventory because we made a deal with them. It's like, we'll give you the new planes if not give, you're going to have to buy them, of course. We'll put you at the top of the list for the new planes. So
You got to
we're gonna,
recycle that before you can be able to buy the new one.
yeah, you got to bring us back up. So we'll see how the F-16s do in Ukraine. But the sad thing I've heard about the F-16s is the Russians design their air defense around the F-16.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, so they might have like a lot of, out of the box solutions for F-16. I don't know. I'm not an expert in these things, but I hear these things from experts. It's like, I never thought of that.
Yeah, but I don't know like
But based on how the Russians have done
alternative?
so far,
What could they get that would defeat their air defenses?
B-1 bomber, stealth bombers
I guess maybe.
with nuclear ordnance.
Yeah, no one's ever shot one of those down.
I don't think anyone's ever been given a shot at one, because they're only $1 billion a crack.
Yeah, but they've been shot down like at least like 4 of them or something.
Oh, a bomber? I knew they've crashed. I knew the fighters had been shot down.
Oh, the F-117. Okay, yeah, maybe
One of those got
B2s have
shot down over. It was in Serbia, I think. Anyway, Way of the Gun.
Yeah, we got into Top Gun. We just had to talk about tech.
Mm-hmm.
There's plenty of tech in this movie, I guess, for the guns they have, which I hope you picked them up because I didn't have time to.
Oh, I did. Oh, believe me, that's the weirdo. Autism was in full effect in this movie.
Cinematographer is Dick Pope, which let's look at it because I forget. I feel like he hasn't done a lot that I recognize. He does a lot of independent stuff, which that makes sense because this is basically an independent movie. He's done a lot of movies where it's like, oh, I know that movie, I don't want to watch it. Like Bernie, is that where like Jack Black's like a weird serial killer or something?
I think so. Yeah.
Man of the Year,
like Texas or something.
There's Illusionist, which that was the other magic movie compared to like The Prestige, and so of course I never watched The Illusionist because The Prestige is too awesome.
The Illusionist is cool. It's not as good as The Prestige, but it's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I think he did a lot of. He did a lot of like music video stuff too. That's his kind of his cinema. He does music videos and independent cinema. That's kind of his bag. But yeah, if you look at his list, you'll see stuff you'll like. I know I heard the name Vera Drake. I don't know what that movie is, but I've heard of it.
Right.
Yeah, of course, written by Christopher McQuarrie because that was his thing. He got known as a writer. Cast as Ryan Phillippe, who like at this time like I didn't like at all because he was like in like Cruel Intentions, which is a movie I thought was just stupid. He's done a lot of like high school drama kind of movies.
Yeah, he was shedding that skin with this one.
Oh yeah, he's doing all kinds of weird stuff in this movie.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Benicio del Toro, which of course he was in Usual Suspects, right? So here he's a bit more. This is probably like the most like clearly you can hear Benicio del Toro in probably any movie of his.
I heard something about The Usual Suspects, and I don't know if it's true or not because Bryan Singer's not doing interviews anymore. That he didn't feel like his dialogue added anything.
Yeah.
So his pitch was going to be, I'm going to speak incomprehensibly.
Yeah.
And then because that was one of his earlier movies, people kind of just came to expect like, well, is Benicio del Toro going to do just mumble dialogue the whole time? But I don't know if that's true or not, but it sounds like something he would do.
I don't know.
Because
That's almost how he's. I mean, it's a bit more affected there, but you go to like Fear and Loathing, he's still kind of mumbling, and I feel like he mumbles on most of his movies. I feel like this is his least mumbly performance.
I'm trying to think of what a clear dialogue movie. Well, Sicario, he was pretty clear. He
Yeah,
didn't
I
talk
guess.
a
No,
lot.
yeah, he's mostly silent there. So yeah.
Yeah.
Did you ever watch? Did you ever watch that one with like Tommy Lee Jones where he's like knife fighting him? Was it like Hunter or something like that?
I know what you're talking about, but I don't remember.
I never saw it. I hear people talk about it all the time.
I know he did that movie Reptile, which was not a great movie for was it Netflix. He was like a detective. He was pretty coherent in that one.
Okay.
But yeah. But I heard that about him in The Usual Suspects. I don't know if it was true, but it's funny.
Yeah. I mean,
Like it doesn't matter what I say.
Yeah, it makes his character more interesting. He's basically the Chewbacca of the group.
Yeah.
You know, one person knows what he says, and everyone else pretends they know what he said.
Well, the thing about criminals too, just like hardcore criminals, is you get stuck with a random assortment of guys.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you something, folks. Most criminals, a lot of criminals, not very intelligent people. So, because they're taking big risks for sometimes very little reward. So sometimes you get some guys that are slick, cool, and smart, but then sometimes you get the mumble guys.
And of course, Juliette Lewis and a bunch of other people will bring up, which really it's just James Caan. I think he's the other big name in this.
And Ty Diggs, who I always associate with Tay Diggs, who I always associate with Equilibrium, basically playing the same character. As so, and his partner Nicky Cott, who I don't recognize from anything else.
I only know him from he was around this time. There was a quickly bright and burned out show called Boston Public about like a school system, and of course in Boston, done by the guy who did like Ally McBeal and all those court shows and stuff.
Okay.
I can't remember his name, but you know who he is.
Yeah. And then, of course, Jeffrey Lewis, who can forget him, who's been like, if you're a fan of 80s sci-fi, you'll know this guy.
Who's Jeffrey Lewis?
He was the guy who was trying to commit Russian roulette.
Oh, Abner? Okay.
Abner, yeah. You've seen that guy in like a billion.
Is he like a comedic actor, or is he more serious most of the time?
I think he is a serious, he's a character actor.
Okay.
Who's just vaguely comedic, even though he's playing serious roles, because he's always kind of typecast as the same. It's either bumbling guy or really evil guy who's bumbling. Okay.
Well, I felt like the guy who plays Hal. He seemed I can't remember if he like is this guy usually playing comedic roles, or is this kind of his thing? I couldn't remember. So,
and then of course Sarah Silverman.
Yeah,
I look at that. I was like, that's Sarah Silverman.
Still looking basically the same.
Exactly.
24 years later. So.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll just get in. Oh yeah, Nathan, do you have a history of the way of a gun?
I think my first coherent viewing of this was the hour before we did this podcast. I am familiar with some of the dialogue scenes with James Caan, but I think it's because I looked him up years ago.
Okay.
So I think this might be my first complete front-to-back viewing of Way of the Gun.
Well, I know we did one for American Greed Factory, so I must have made you watch it back then. So
yeah, maybe I did.
Maybe your only history of this is me making you watch it.
That could be. I forgot about it. Because some of those older things we did, where it's like we did this movie before, it's like, well, who was with me and how wasted was I? Because it's like I may or may not remember doing it.
Yeah, and I didn't take notes on any. I don't take. Well, I don't know. Maybe it's a thing. I don't take notes on Greed Factory stuff. It's just all off the top of my head. So.
Yes, Greed Factory is pure free ball, folks. Comes along once a year. We do.
But yeah, I mean, I think. I mean, this is also coming off of like like Fight Club having a success like on VHS.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, it had a great opening weekend, and then Fight Club fell all the way off.
right.
But I feel like the cynicism was in the air at that time, and so this was just another cynical movie of all bad people. So yeah, it can be really hard to like this movie because there's not a lot to like. You just have to like go with it.
Yeah, the only guy you're rooting for by the end is James Caan, just because
Yeah.
he says the coolest things. It's like, well, I hope he wins because I like the way he
Like,
talks.
he's the one guy who just tells you the truth. He's not. He's
Yeah.
well, even though like even when he lies to you, it's like, come on, I got a bag of $1 million. It's like he's like he's basically with his eyes. He's telling you like, do you want to get killed now? So-
Yeah. Go shoot you in the back of the head now, or we can have an adventure. Well, whatever you want. Don't disappoint me by falling for my lies.
Well, that's like I don't know. That's like the way you could take this movie where it's fun, where it's like in this world that like like essentially doesn't exist because I'm not a criminal, so I don't know if this is how a criminal underground works, but it's like your best friends are the people trying to kill you. Like that's when you
Yeah.
feel the most alive.
You can relate the most to them. It's like, look, I know what you're going through. I've been there. But yeah, I can help you with this. And by help you, I mean lie to you and betray you. That's help in this world.
You want to get a coffee?
Yeah. Want to get a coffee and have a lot of Mexicans stare at us like we were just out here shooting guns,
Yeah, because like any other movie like that encounter would just be like a bland shootout, and here it's just like this great dialogue.
Yeah, it's conversation. Like I said, it's very close to David Mamet, but not as serious. Kind of like David Mamet, but with the sharp edges rounded off.
Yeah.
And it's like we know you like nobody in this movie. It's kind of designed that way, but let's give some pithy dialogue to people so you can at least maybe see them as like, oh, this is how I function in this world, even though it makes no sense to you. It's like, yeah, this is where these guys fit.
These guys just live in the world. They don't want to, but they live here.
Yeah.
So yeah, Act 1, we're at a dive bar. It's literally just says dive bar outside.
Yeah.
We get Ryan Phillippe walks past real quick. Music is playing until a car alarm goes off. And then Sarah Silver and her boyfriend start yelling at Benicio del Toro and Ryan Phillippe as they like sit on their car and like have a discussion. And then they start yelling at him, and Sarah Silver basically goes off into like an aristocrat's routine to yell at the obscenities at them. So.
Yeah, I imagine that was completely it was just like go nuts. I don't think that was scripted. Ryan Phillippe's response, which is the best thing ever, was it's like, tell that cunt to shut up or I'm gonna fuck start her face. It's like that's you want to use that on somebody, but then you realize, well, they're gonna recognize that's from a movie. But I imagine the Sarah Silverman end of it was just like complete improv.
Yeah.
It kind of had that vibe to it.
And of course now
my boyfriend's not even gay. It's like, okay.
Oh yeah, and half this dialogue, yeah, if you said it today, people would be like, "That's not acceptable." It's like, well, these people aren't acceptable, and all right.
These guys murder people for a job. It's like,
so the boyfriend, he's kind of like nervous. Is like, all right, well, we got to fight. She's got a big mouth, but we got to fight. He's like, it's like, all right, you want to do the man dance? First dance is yours, or something, or first, yeah, something like that. And so he basically gives Ryan the first shot, and he just punches Sarah Silverman in the face because he's
which is like the correct response. It's like, well, she's the one who started it. So,
if I remember the audio commentary like that, I mean, because again, like this scene is just there to catch your attention, has really nothing to do with the plot of the movie, other than to set up like that these are not good people, but they're clever, which is the only. That's the only thing. Like when movies with criminals, like if they're clever, you forgive so much about people if they're clever.
Yeah, if they're charming or quirky in some way, it's like.
Because like the only reason, like he's basically like, well, we're gonna lose this fight, so I'm gonna just go to a hospital, and that's how I lose this fight. This guy's got to go home with his girlfriend who just got punched in the face. Like, who's gonna have the worst time? It's that guy. So, although I don't know why like Benicio del Toro's character like comes in like stamps a lady's foot in and then just starts punching other people in the crowd. They're not just exclusively going at women here. They're just kind of going after everybody, and they all get their ass beat. So,
And Benicio del Toro gets kicked directly in the balls while he's on the ground. Like they show it.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, reminds me of a Sam Peckinpah film. Like they're really like embracing violence right in the first scene.
And they get beat up and left for the cops, which I don't know if anything happens. And then there's like a voiceover by but Ryan Phillippe, who's introduced himself as like as him as Parker and Benicio del Toro as Longbow.
Yeah.
Which
I always thought is this name was it a play on Longbow or what?
That's how I wrote it out, but I don't know.
Okay.
I almost feel. I mean, this feels so much like a western just crammed into modern times. I wonder if that's how it was conceived originally. So yeah, when we get the opening credits, Parker gives more of a voiceover, kind of about fate, how like they didn't like what the world was giving them, so they decided to take a different path, which they're basically petty criminals who like sell blood and semen on the side to get by. To what end? No idea.
It's a weird side thing. My favorite part of the movie is when they're in the sperm donation clinic.
Yeah.
Anyway, go ahead. We'll get. To
well, yeah, we get ready. Yeah, my next note is weird interviews at the sperm bank. So, which is basically just like a comedy routine of like language and diction and stuff going on here. It's like, no, what are you saying? This is what you're saying, but this is what you mean. Like, a lot of dialogue cannot repeat here.
The Ryan Phillippe dialogue was just really like just homophobic rant.
Yeah.
It sounded like, this is like a Adam Carolla bit or something. Now the Benicio del Toro dialogue I really like. He's answering questions they didn't ask. Like, I've never killed anyone. Like, sir, I didn't even ask you that. So, yeah. Never had sex with a dead body. No one's asking me. Well, again, you should ask that question because that's all stuff you would love to do in real life. But unfortunately, half the time when you're in that situation, it's like you got to be serious because I need this job or whatever. But it's like I've always thought about like throwing that out there.
Well, I don't necessarily think that the Parker, his thing is necessarily that he's homophobic. He feels like the way
he's just trying to make the interviewer very uncomfortable.
Yeah, but he feels like the way the guy's asking it, he thinks he's being clinical. He thinks he's actually being homophobic with his clinicality of it. And then he's just being abrasive with it. But also, this is around that time where you have like that Louis C.K. bit where it's about like people saying the N-word, like that phrase, and then that puts it in your head, and then people are like, yeah, and then people just started actually just saying the N-word. It's like, see, now it's out, and then everybody, that didn't work for anybody. So
you can't sublimate the N-word. It's like because the power of the N-word will overtake you, and you'll say it.
There's some
interesting theory. It's probably true too.
But then you realize like Louis C.K. is like half Mexican and like he like wrote for like Chris Rock, so he kind of has like, he has more perspective than most people. It's like I don't think Bubba, from Alabama should be taking hold of Louis C.K.'s logic here.
Yeah, Louis C.K. probably has like a 160 IQ too. He's smart. He understands a lot of things
and also,
again, it's like a little bit of knowledge is dangerous. Like they talk about that with like guns and explosives. It's like the most dangerous knowledge is a little bit. Yeah, it is.
Oh, that's always like the weird thing with comedy too, where it seems like people just want to have like fun and with like enjoying these like absurd ideas, but then like they get co-opted by like conservatives as like, no, that's the plan for the rest of life. It's like, no, this is just a bit. Don't you understand? It's like, no. Yeah.
This is my all-encompassing philosophy.
And then you can
I have seen the mountain. You've shown it to me. Like, no, I was making a joke.
And now you just see like, like a lot of comedians just steering into that, like the skid of that, or steering into the ice of that, where it's like, oh wait, what if I just pretend now it's my philosophy, it's not a comedy routine anymore. You make a lot more money if people believe rather than laugh.
Yeah, I've seen that. That's especially sad to me because I know 90% of the time the people saying it, the person who originally said it, who now this is their identity, they also don't believe it.
Yeah.
But they're like, man, this is a lot easier than coming up with new material. Yeah. Holy shit, am I making a lot of money?
Yeah, I used to think like
It doesn't matter if you go to Disney or Fox News; it's equally as sad either way. Like it doesn't cut
Yeah, I
one
mean,
way or
like I always thought like Larry the Cable Guy was a sad idea, where it's guy just like I'm pretending to be this character, and then people love it, but ironically, or not, or unironically, and then they just have to live with that bit for the rest of their life. Or these,
yeah.
this is like even worse than that.
Yeah, no, this is worse because at least Larry the Cable Guy like has a really cool house. Like whatever happens, he's in a hot tub, probably has a Bugatti, at least a Ferrari,
Yeah.
and it's like, well, that all
And
makes
he's
sense.
from like Minnesota, so you can just turn that accent off anytime you want.
Yeah, yeah, he can be like intelligent. Start talking like he can go from Alabama to Fargo character.
That guy can hide. He knew what he was doing.
Oh yeah, he can disappear.
Then the guys are like looking at Jack Mags as they overhear like the money surrounding a surrogate mother, which I don't know. This seems crazy for the time because like I've heard like people get paid like 60 grand to do surrogate mother stuff, which seems like nothing. Here it's like $2 million on the line, but it's also because it's like a criminal enterprise is involved. So
Yeah, I know. I know with surrogacy, the expensive thing is like you got to pay all their medical bills, and that's usually out of pocket.
yeah,
That's where the millions of dollars come from.
Oh,
Well, not
okay.
millions, hundreds of thousands of dollars come from. But not because I know people have done surrogacy, and it's like, yeah, they pay all your medical bills, and like you can't put them on, your insurance. You're just out of pocket with that stuff. So it's always very rich people,
okay.
but it's not criminals making the money. Well, it is. It's the criminals that sell you healthcare. So
I remember it was like Elizabeth Banks because she's just like busy, like being an actor, a writer, and a director. She did the surrogate. It's like, well, I can't take 9 months off to have a baby. So.
yeah, I gotta work. What are you talking
Cocaine Bear paid for this baby.
about?
And I also overhear the name Alan Painter, so that's like, oh, that's where we're going. Then we cut to Juliette Lewis. She's the surrogate mother. Her name's Robin, but we'll find that out later on.
Yeah, this is a very dialed down Juliette Lewis performance too.
Yeah, yeah. She's not.
Using
She's finally
US
not a.
Lewis
She's not a
screaming
teenager.
for dialogue,
Yeah. And she's like, so she's surrogate mother for like this old guy, and like I don't know, the word I came up with is wifetress.
Yeah.
Some combination of wife and mistress.
Yeah, it's obviously like she's a much younger, more attractive woman that would be with this guy under any circumstances, except the fact he's like some kind of multi-millionaire crime figure.
Yeah. So yeah, the wife doesn't seem thrilled about the baby. Then we get Tay Diggs shows up as like a bodyguard, which these guys are more like straight laced like bodyguards, but like they're like more evil.
They're like Secret Service guys, but
Yeah.
with a dark side.
But they
And
have
we don't know what their background was.
No.
We have no idea.
we
just
have no. I don't know. It's what's strange to me about this movie is like it seems like we don't know anybody's background, but it seems like everybody has served in special forces somewhere.
Yeah, the skill sets that evolve here. It's like, is this like the Matrix, where do you know how to fly a helicopter? Not yet. It seems like these guys don't start out the movie with the skill set they end up with.
Yeah. But it's also actually I think a lot of things like a lot of stuff in this movie where it seems like special forces stuff are going. I forget who the action coordinator is or whatever, but I think he was like a guy who did military service. And so like Christopher McQuarrie would just like go up to him and is like, "What would you do in this scene?" And so that's how a lot of like action scenes came about. Especially we'll get to them where it's like that's kind of strange, and then like they have like reference video of like, no, we saw guys do this, so we're gonna do that here. It's like I've never seen that before. It's like, yeah, no, it's weird.
Yeah, a lot of the stuff that happens in this movie to a certain extent makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I never would have thought of that because you don't see that. Because, of course, we don't experience this in our normal life. What's the best way to have a shootout, Nathan? It's like, shit, I don't know. Yeah, it's like the stuff they come up with in this movie is very practical and cool because you've never seen it before or since.
No.
Never done this again.
I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of DNA in this movie that's also goes into like the first Jack Reacher movie. I mean, there's less shootouts there, but then when there are, they're kind of like weird and like clever in how they do them.
Yeah, yeah, because Jack Reacher like understands those scenarios as well
Yeah.
as the guy. Yeah, so it may, yeah, it's like a, again, I love the skill set. The skill sets in this movie are inspirational. It makes you think, well, like hell, this is possible as long as you like plan ahead a little bit.
Yeah. Or just very good at improv with violent improv.
Yeah, violent improv, and
And use
you're
all.
not going to have an insane fear reaction like, oh my god, I'm going to die.
So then we cut to Robin's being taken to the doctor's office. The crew's waiting in the parking lot. Anytime I say the crew, I'm referring to Parker and Longbow. Which, what are they, just playing cards on the hood, and like Parker gets mad because he lost again or something? But,
Yeah, they're always playing the game of hearts, which comes up later in the movie
yeah.
as like another metaphor for
Yeah. So they see Robin and the bodyguards, and they basically presume like, oh, well, that's who we're looking for. And even though like we never show like the bodyguards like looking back at them, they like put a call out. It's like, hey, take a ride around. We think something strange is going on out there.
Taye Diggs does give a slight look over his shoulder.
Oh, he does. Okay.
It's very subtle, but you're like, oh, because you don't know. You're like, but it makes you think like, why did they film that? Did he look back for a reason, or is that just he's like covering all the vectors?
Yeah.
It's like, no, he saw something he didn't like.
Robin meets with the doctor, and she leaves in like a sullen mood. Which I'm not sure if we're supposed to pick up on this immediately, but this is always a thing with like surrogate mother stuff. It's like, even if it's not your kid, well, here actually it is. So it's like she's getting to the point. It's like, oh, well, I'll just give the baby away, and get a lot of money, and then I'll be set for the rest of her life. But it's then like, no, then my kid's gone, and so now she's like, no, I want this baby. Now I need to run away.
Yeah, because you're assuming when you go into this is like true surrogacy.
Yeah.
Like the mother's egg, the father's sperm, your womb. Like that's true. You actually don't have any ties to that child other than your womb.
Yeah.
Well, I know in surrogacy and with women and hormones, it's like, well, once something starts growing in your body and you become pregnant, you have a tie to that thing. You're not a vending machine. Like this is, but in this case, we find out it's like, no, there's actually like, this is my child. Twist later.
Yeah. So yeah, Robin.
One of the most predictable twists.
Yeah.
But it's like, okay, because it explains behavior.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And just like this is the robbery. We're gonna steal a pregnant lady. Like that's not a good look for your main characters.
Yeah, these are horrible people. Okay, I get it.
So yeah, Robin and the bodyguards get on an elevator. They go down the first floor. We see Parker in the distance, like kind of. Well, actually, we see like I think we see Longbow with a newspaper kind of like walk by quickly.
Yeah.
And then we see like Parker in the distance walking forward. We see him putting like pantyhose on his head, which the bodyguards directly see is like, well, this is suspicious.
Danger.
And then they pull out guns immediately, and then that gives Longbow the position to grab Robin, and so they point the guns back at them, and then Parker comes up and points guns at both of their heads, and then it's like then they start like kind of making the deal. It's like, all right, like this is how it's gonna go, and then and the bodyguards just start pointing the gun at the baby, and they're like, wait, who the fuck are we dealing with here?
That's when she has the best line. It's like they don't care about dying; they care about losing.
Yeah.
Like, oh wow, that's a dark philosophy. How long is your security company going to last? That's the principle. But you don't ask these questions because it sounds cool.
Yeah. Yeah, just the complete fatalism. What did he die for? Principles.
Just ideas, abstract concepts.
You know what?
No, like money? No. Like,
they died to make your job way easier because now nobody's gonna come after us if they think that's what we're willing to do every time.
Yeah.
So yeah, then Longbow lets Robin go as like the crew kind of like tactically leaves. So this is where like they're like moving, and like the one guy runs, and the other guy's asked like moving. He's like not yet. And then he gets like covering fire. And then he yells moving and runs, that's what we actually do. We train to do that in the Marine Corps when you have to do like assault a position. Like you're behind like some cover, and like you get up and you pretend you're firing, and then the other person's like like moving, you yell moving, or actually say I'm up, he sees me, I'm down, and that's how much time you have to run to the next cover. Because that's the idea. It's like, all right, I'm up, like they're gonna shoot me right now, and now I'm back into cover.
So
um,
that's a real thing, just yelling it out like that.
yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's letting the
Okay.
other guy go know that like, um, it's like, all right, you got my covering fire. It's like, and your back is turned, and so he's like, then you say moving, and like the other guy says move, and that gives him the go to like, all right, now I run. So
Okay. Makes sense.
yeah,
It's
but
kind of weird to see it in a movie.
yeah, by like one of these guys are just supposed to be like drifter criminals, and they have like special forces tactics going.
Yeah. No, they become Navy SEAls all of a sudden.
It's
Yeah,
like
it's
they didn't train this. Like they just know this intrinsically.
which is unbelievable and or frightening.
Yeah. um. So yeah, they leave the clinic, and then like I think like Jeffers, that's who Tay Diggs is. He gets on like a thing is like, hey, they're coming outside, shoot them, and then you immediately hear a gunfight going on, which this is I guess
These are my favorite gunfights. You don't see, you
yeah,
just see the aftermath of. I love that in Reservoir Dogs, and I did love that here because it's like it's up to you to fill in the
yeah,
blanks. Because it sounds like just this ridiculous volume of fire, even for
yeah.
semi-automatic like handguns. Mostly, it's like, man, these guys must have had 15 magazine bodies because one of them's using a 45.
Yeah.
So it's like 7 reloads, 7 reloads, 7, and it's just boom, 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 boom. That's all you hear. It's like, man, these guys are going for it. That or the security guys are just in a full panic. I don't know
Yeah. Yeah, you don't know who shot first, but
yeah.
um and then according to James Caan, this was just all a mistake because like I think he says later on, it's like I'm not the idiot who tried to shoot guys that agreed not to do a crime.
Yeah. Yeah, the interrogation room, the introduction to James Caan in the interrogation room was amazing.
um So yeah, Robin's like, she's told to like leave. Like the Jeffers like puts on an elevator. I think he wants her to go back to the doctor's room or something like that.
Oh, he says go to the top floor and wait.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then like he runs back. He runs to go outside to go join the fight. And then like as he runs away, she just gets out of the elevator. And then she starts going for the front door as well, which is like this. That's crazy. I go towards the gunfire pregnantly. um. And then as she like gets close to the door, that's when Parker like kind of runs back into the door to like take cover, and then he sees her there. It's like, well, might as well take her hostage.
Yeah.
So he grabs Robin and gets her out. The crew make their getaway. The guards give chase. Like all the other guards are dead except for Jeffers and Obeck. It's like, is Obeck is the other guy? I think so.
Yeah, Obeck, yeah.
Um,
I almost confused it with Oobleck. You know, that's that like weird stuff you make out of cornstarch.
Oh, okay, huh?
Not Newtonian.
Yeah.
Look it up on YouTube. I'm not going to explain Oobleck to everyone.
It's like, what is it? Like you hit it, it gets harder, and then if
Yeah.
you're gentle with it, it just like acts like a gel.
It gives, yeah. And then people shoot it with guns on YouTube. Like, will this stop a bullet? It's like, no, it's only, it's only as dense as, because I don't know, there's some proportional force calculate. I don't see. Here I am. I'm doing it. It's fun.
And so yeah, they have we're in the cruise car there. What do they have? Like a Suburban, like a '70s Suburban or something like that.
70s, early '80s Suburbans, the ones with the big V8s in them.
And so yeah, Parker's like making sure she's okay, and then also like ties her up, kind of like grumbly. It's like, "Are you okay?" No, shut up. Now I tie you up. Which is actually like the weird dichotomy of the Parker character, because like as you go on, you just like he seems like, even though he's like clearly able to like do terrible things and has done terrible things, like there is a soft side to him. Like it's like
Yeah, he's developing this peculiar philosophy as he goes on, which the James Caan character like points out is like, that'll just get you killed.
Yeah, this hesitation is gonna get you killed.
Yeah, there's no God in this world. I kind of understand that. He doesn't say that, but it's similar to that.
But then like the guards also get in a car and chase after him. So like the crew pull into an alleyway, and like they like leave the car in like first gear and just let it drive down the alleyway. While they hop out of the car and kind of like hide behind columns.
Yeah, the car becomes like mobile cover. It's the coolest thing I've ever seen. Because usually you think it's like, oh, they're gonna go like full Beverly Hills Cop, like they're just gonna drive these cars as fast. It's like, no, that draws a lot of attention. And you already had a massive shootout
Yeah,
like 2 blocks away. So it's like, no, we're gonna do slow rolling cover, which is like it's two things. It provides you with cover and also confuses your opponents.
yeah,
Because there's something always moving and the human eye tracks movement.
yeah.
So they're like, you're going to be focused in on that Suburban, and these guys are just going to pop out and pop
And
back.
what they need's in the Suburban, and these guys, that just lets them to provide their own ambush with their car.
Yeah, cool idea. I can't wait to do this in real life. But the problem is with modern cars like mine, if I put it in first, if I just left it in drive, opened the door, and got out, it'd be like the vehicle would automatically go into park. It'd be like a passenger or driver's door open. You know, it's not no fun anymore. Is
Yeah.
what I'm saying. Can't do this.
And so yeah, then they get back on the truck as they kind of like do their own ambush and covering fire and hop back in, and they kind of like drive away real quickly and then get to the next alleyway and just do the same trick. Though here they have like little thing where it's like they both like kind of like pop open the doors, and then they both have like their legs kind of like looks like they're pushing the car along. It just looks weird but interesting.
Yeah, they're getting ready to jump out, so they're always keeping their foot like, do we jump out now?
Yeah.
Now, just hopping along.
And so yeah, and then this time like just Jeffers hops out to like go after Longbow, who like hops in a way, but then he's able to like circle back around and get back in the car and like take a shot. And then like Jeffers gets back in the car, and now they take off and they can't see him. And like as they pull around the corner, the Suburban comes back and just rams right in the front of the car, taking it out and kind of like knocks them out a bit. Which then also Parker gets out of the car and just gets up next to him, points guns in their faces, and just kind of decides he's not going to kill them. Which I don't know if this is like a courtesy or it's like remember,
No, he's
we didn't
fully
kill you.
intended to kill them because Longbow was like putting the Suburban back in drive, and then he looks at him like, okay, you know, because he thought he was going to go shoot him.
Yeah.
What's funny in this movie too, I don't know if you noticed, is everyone puts their seatbelt back on when they get in the car. Because even though those two guys got whacked by the corner of the Suburban, they did put their seatbelts back on when they got in the car.
Okay.
That's probably the only reason they're not dead. They were pretty disorientated from that. And plus, the one guy, the Taye Diggs character, might have got a shotgun jammed into his face too, because the way that was the only thing. Like if I was the driver of that car, because he had that shotgun like cradled, basically pointing at the driver's head. Hey, make sure you put this on that damn thing.
But yeah, I don't know if like, yeah, I don't know why Parker hesitates here, or if he thought like he was gonna get like something in return for not killing them, but he doesn't. So
They talk about karma later in the movie, so I'm guessing he thinks like there's some debit that will be or debt that will be repaid for not just cold-bloodedly killing these people.
yeah.
When it's actually like that was your mistake. You should have killed these guys. You know, what's 2 more bodies on top of the 4?
So yeah, then yeah, Parker and Longbow take off, and we can stay with the guards as they kind of like get out of the car, and they kind of like walk after them like slowly, and you hear the sirens in the background, and you see them put their guns down and put their hands up. It's like, right, they aren't cops, so they've just been in a shootout. So yes, this is the correct action.
This is armed private security. I always like how people throw their guns on the ground in movies. Like you would never do that in real life. Number 1, it's dangerous. Number 2, guns are expensive.
Yeah.
And if you're just like, you know, they're not criminals, like they're allowed to have those. Like you're not going to scar your gun up. You set it.
So I have that been in Act 1 because now they, this is the hostage movie, so now they need to get money for a pregnant lady. So we got Act 2. Yep. This is another one thing where it's like this is where like Parker is like cold blooded and like and the way he talks definitely, but then less in how he acts. But here's one of his cruel lines where he's like, "Hey, lady, we're not talking about how long you're gonna live. We're talking about how slow you're going to die." It's just like, oh Jesus.
Yeah.
which seems like just a veiled threat. But then considering what they do to the Obek guy later on, it's like, oh no, he would have done that. So,
Yeah.
uh, here we find out the crew is just like looking for a name of who to call for a ransom, which this is where she's like baffled by it. Like, you don't know who you just robbed from? It's like, no, why would we? So they steal a new car, which they have a van later on, but I think they steal a different car here. But
Yeah, I steal a station wagon.
yeah, okay. Then we cut to a gas station where Longbow like steals a bunch of stuff and kind of like hits on the store clerk, and so she's actually like, kind of like, oh, this is fun. I'm not gonna stop this guy. And then like Robin was given a tape at the doctor's office, and here they're watching it, which you don't see what it is, but I'm guessing it's just an ultrasound video or something, or
Yeah, that's
something
what I think.
weirder.
Something like no, it's ultrasound because the guy's wife looks at it later.
Yeah, but yeah, I'm not. But I'm also not sure because like when the doctor hands her the tape, she says like this will help you with like breathing techniques or something. So I have no. So, but I assume it's just the ultrasound thing because we show that later on. So
Yeah.
Parker calls Dr. Painter to come check on Robin. Dr. Painter like comes up, or it's again here. It's like they have him like meet in the middle of like 4 running trucks. So it's against like that's your cover is just noise, and you see Longbow kind of like pop in and out like a ghost. um, but then like Dr. Painter starts working on Robin, and then Longbow gets like it's like, hey, what's in the bag? Or no, like Longbow looks at the bag, but then Parker Parker susses out like, hey, what's in the bag? And he finds a gun in there, and then he kind of like hits the doctor and is like, hey, you don't do anything unless I tell you to do. So, then we come back to where we see Hale talking. He just wants to pay them off, but the guy on the other line is like talking him out of it. It's like, no, we can't just do that. So, which that's going to be Sarno, which that's James Caan character, but we're not introduced to him just yet. We cut back. The doctor concludes that Robin's dehydrated because again she's like in pain, and he was like, wait, she having? Everyone's confused. Like, is she having the baby or not? What's going on here? And then they learn that like the guy they just robbed from is like a Vegas union buster, also like a land developer or something. It's just like a billionaire criminal enterprise or something.
Basically a money launderer.
Yeah.
Most people would know him now as he's the guy who played Herschel on The Walking Dead.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
He died. He died in 2018. So
okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it looked familiar. I didn't know like.
His name's Scott Wilson.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then we cut to a guy, Abner, is playing Russian roulette with himself. He's putting one bullet in 6 different revolvers, and then just putting them in like, what is that, a pillowcase or something?
Yeah.
And then he just like kind of jumbles it around and grabs one gun, and there's a phone ringing right next to him on a couch. He puts the gun to his head, pulls the trigger, nothing, and then he just kind of puts the gun away, grabs another gun while the phone's just still ringing. He kind of puts his hand up to the head, which at first I thought he wanted to like cover his ear from either, like I thought that was funny. He's like, oh, he didn't want to hear the gunshot, but I thought maybe it was like something like he doesn't want to hear the foam, but really he like holds his hand on his temple, which I'm not sure what that's about, but
Yeah.
I don't know if he's like, oh, I don't want my brains over there, so I'm going to deflect it with my hand. He's also got like a bandage on his hand, unexplained. It's just, there to pick out or whatever. And then Abner, as he's like putting another gun to his head, decides like, I guess I'll answer the phone, which is just a very bleak, funny scene. Like, this is the dark humor you get out of this movie. So.
Yeah, we know this guy from like he was the third guy in Thunderbolt and Lightfoot.
Oh, okay.
He was also in Salem's Lot. I'm trying to think of what are some other. He was a Knight of the Comet.
All movies I know and haven't seen.
Oh, okay.
Except for Tango and Cash.
Tango and Cash, The
Okay.
Lawnmower Man. He's been in a lot. There's all kinds of movies.
Yeah.
Like he was on the X-Files, I think, once.
Okay, like you said, he was a character actor, so he kind of shows up in a lot of things. Okay.
Yeah, he's always like the 3rd or 5th guy in something, but he's kind of funny or just dark.
Yeah.
But his name is Jeffrey Lewis it's spelled in the old English way, Geof.
Oh, okay. The
Yeah,
Joffreys.
Joffrey.
I mean, he almost like steals this movie because every scene he's in is like
Yeah.
great.
Oh, one of the best parts of one of the most identifiable human moments in this movie when James Caan comes later. There's a lot of stuff in this that like did Breaking Bad like just redo this part, you know,
Yeah.
because it seems like very similar to things like that. I
I,
think it also takes place in New Mexico, which makes it interesting.
yeah.
Or at least I see New Mexico plates on the car. So
Yeah. Well, yeah. It's near Mexico because it's a pretty short jaunt to Mexico in this movie. So,
yeah.
um, yeah, like this and like No Country for Old Men. There's like some DNA. I'm not sure. I mean, I'm pretty sure that No Country for Old Men has nothing to do with this movie, but you can just find similarities. So,
Oh yeah.
um, but yeah, I wonder
And
how.
No Country for Old Men is part of the Border trilogy. It just takes place on the border too.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I wonder how old Christopher McQuarrie was at this time because there was some like I don't know if he's just bullshitting his logic here or if he had like it's like no, I've lived a life, man. Like this is what I've learned.
Christopher McQuarrie is 5 years older than me.
Okay.
So he's 55 now.
So he would have been 30 when this movie came out.
Yeah. And he is from, where is he from? Well, it just says where he's born. He's from Princeton, New Jersey is where he was born.
Oh, okay. So he knows crime.
And he taught at a grammar school in Australia.
Huh. Okay.
So.
Um.
And he hitchhiked across his country and was a private detective. I don't know. That sounds like a fanciful story. I hope it's true.
It's like every story from Herner Herzog. It's like that's a great lie. Never tell me it's not true.
Yeah, I want to believe that. I don't care. I need to believe that because it's poetic. I didn't say it was truthful. I said it was poetic.
Then we cut to Longbow's kind of like laying out to the doctor that he's going to bring the money and they're going to induce labor in Mexico. Which he just says this and is like, wait, what's going on? Then we cut to Parker gives half his sandwich to Robin, which this is just kind of showing off he's like letting his defenses down. He's like, I guess he's not fully into the crime here. Longbow hops into the van. They take off, which anytime Longbow hops in, he kind of looks suspiciously at Parker. It's like, what are you doing? He's like, in The Matrix when the other agents walk in. What are you doing? What don't you know what's going on? It's like, no, man. Then we cut to James Caan, Joe Sarno. He shows up to talk to the bodyguards. He's a bag man. Nathan, do you have a definition or concept of what a bag man is?
As I understand, a bag man is someone who collects and holds money for organized crime figures. Like that's the literal translation of it.
Okay.
But it's also a bag man is someone because there's different terms. There's like fixer, mechanic, bag man.
Okay.
But a bag man is basically a guy who is essentially works for the mob. And he's not like the capo. He's not like but he's not just a basic soldier. He's someone who's like, I solve problems.
Yeah.
Want to get money out of these guys, you want this to go away, you call a bag man.
Okay.
Basically an old school like mob fixer is what I understand it to be.
Okay. Yeah, because what's the wolf? Is he a fixer?
Yeah, he's a fixer. Yeah,
okay.
There's different terms that mean different things at different times.
Yeah.
So bagman is basically a generic catch-all. This is someone who could be a hitman. He could, there's people that just specialized in murder, mainly organized crime people.
Well, here, like the mythos of the bagman here is just like they're the people that lay the bait for the trap. Like that's how they're described. It's like you never get the money, but the money's always there.
Yeah, what I understand is of a bagman as being someone who collects debts and moves money around for the mob, but they're not a high-profile person.
Okay.
It's not like everyone's heard of John Gotti. No one knows like who the people 3 rungs down from were, because they probably didn't go to prison because they had a lower profile and they didn't wear the fancy suits or whatever. They solved the problems. Those people have throughout the era of the 90s and 2000 indie film have become famous. Like that's like, oh no, those are the real, those are the nuts and bolts of the organized crime, or the guys that solve problems. But they're always like a day late and a dollar short, which they are in this movie too. It's
Yeah.
all like, yeah, all these guys are broke. They're living as criminals, which is not like, it only looks cool in the mob movies. It's in real life, it's kind of sucks.
Yeah, I mean that's what you feel sad about James Caan's character. Is like he seems like he's good at his job, but he has no retirement plan, and apparently he's not making good money. But he makes his billionaire happy. So,
Yeah.
because I mean that's also the other thing they stay here is like even though like Hale is supposed to be like this evil character, like Sarno's like, oh, he doesn't touch that stuff because he doesn't want to. We touch all that stuff. But Hale still like when he wants to, it's like, no, I'm evil incarnate. And my grandpa. Wait. um. So yeah, they're in this like. Yeah, they ask him like, "Are you a lawyer?" He's like, "Do I look like a fucking lawyer?"
Yeah. He lights a cigarette in the police department, which like that dates the movie.
They kind of frame the situation. I'm not sure if you have like better notes than that. Like the guards are still on the job, but he calls them a bunch of idiots. Jeffers and Obex is like, um, and Jeffers and Obex are kind of like their only concern is the child. So they're, as far as they're concerned, the surrogate mother can get killed, which they don't know yet that that's James Caan's daughter. But we also don't know that. So
Yeah.
um, which I don't think in the multiple viewings of this movie I realized that. Like I don't think I paid that attention. There's a lot of things.
It's like a lot of things that pop up in this movie. It's like there's so many things coming at you that don't pay off. It's one of the big problems with this movie. Is like, man, there's a lot of stuff going on here, but only like half of it is even like ever acknowledged again or pays off in some way.
Yeah.
That's like really accessible to the audience. A lot of things, a lot of the twists and turns of this movie become throwaway dialogue that you're like, oh yeah, in retrospect, oh, I was supposed to feel this when I saw that, which is, you know,
Well,
one of the problems.
there's a lot of eights. There's like probably like 8 different scenes where everyone describes the plan, and then it doesn't get until the end of the movie where like the Parker character's like, I think a plan is just a series of events that are never going to happen, which is like half this movie. You hear people like, all right, this is what's going to happen, and then that doesn't happen, and then the next plan is like, this is what's going to happen, and then it doesn't happen. um, but you know that's but also that's like that's the game you play with screenplays is like you tell people what's going to happen, and then if you just do it, then people are bored, and if something more exciting happens, then they're fine with it. But yeah, that's kind of the magic of like the Ocean's 11 movie where it's like they literally tell you the plan that they're going to do and then they enact it, and then just like all these little things go wrong, but they still come through in the end. It was just like how they overcame the things that they weren't expecting is like where the fun of the movie is. That's where the tension is. It's like, oh, it's not going to plan. Then we got to the crew at the hotel. They have a booby trap with like a double barrel shotgun pointed at the door. Longbow's making calls, which they got a bunch of phone numbers, but I don't think they're like connecting, or he's calling the wrong ones. I can't remember. But eventually he gets to, we cut back to Hale. I mean, like the doctor's Hale's kids, right?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I get out of it.
Or I wrote, because like they have different last names, so I don't know if that was a reason for it. It's like or like his mom had a relationship with Hale and he has a different dad, but I'm not sure about it because he does mention like mom would be like, he says something like mom would be ashamed of you or something, and then he like hits him or something like that, which doesn't necessarily mean like he's his dad. But let's see here. Then Painter's phone rings and Jeffers answers the phone to negotiate, which, you know, these are the flip open phones. So, you know, 2000, we all got cell phones now, but they're only the flip open ones. Longbow asks for $15 million because he's assuming he doesn't know anything about this guy, but this is his guess about how serious they are. And then here's where the fun bit where like Tay Digg does like intentional bad acting. It's like, God damn it, I can't get that kind of money in 12 hours. um, which I think what is like Hale throws up like a 6, like they can get it in 6 hours, and then they negotiate 12 or something like
Yeah, I think that's it.
that. um, and then we come, yeah, we're still, and then like they hang up the phone call. We stay with Longbow, and then Sarno just kind of appears out. We hear his voice, and then Sarno just kind of appears out of darkness after Longbow just fires an errant shot. Which I forget. Sarno says something like what, like one's a firecracker, or three's a crowd, or something like. I can't remember. He says something.
No, one's a backfire,
Yeah.
three's gunplay.
Yeah. Okay. Um.
I did like they had a calculation here that I've never heard that they don't talk about in movies though. Talking about the ransom, it's like how much $15 million would weigh. In like $100 bills, it would weigh like 330 pounds. But if you want unmarked circulated, there'd be a lot of 20s and stuff there. It'd be like 5,000 pounds. It'd be crazy. You'd need like a forklift
Yeah.
to move it.
Well, well, a lot of that dialogue's like in the background because he says something like that weighs like 20,000 pounds, and he's like, all right, weighs more like 3,000 pounds or something like that. So
Yeah.
um,
I only know that because there's like of course, there's some website that like calculates the weight. So I
Yeah.
just actually went and typed it in. I'm assuming it's like casino cash, which criminals would have access to, would be like circulated. You wouldn't all have hundreds. So yeah, it'd probably weigh a ton. I mean, $100,000 weighs a lot in 20. So you need special suitcases.
Yeah, I can't remember because I worked in a casino, and one time I had to go in like the hard count room, which I think that's all like like metal currency, and then I think there's a soft count room too.
Yeah. All the old people sticking the quarters in the things, the slot machines.
One arm bandits.
Yeah. Just like drones. It's like, what? You're not even interacting with the game at this point, other than just feeding money in and pulling a lever.
Yeah, I bet they know how to make those things, holler and whistle and make you pretend like you won when you didn't. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's why like in Japan there's like full on video game companies where like they have crazy like jackpot machines that have like I know they have like a Metal Gear Solid 3, and they have like brand new cutscenes like just for like pulling the jackpot lever and stuff like that. It's like this and that's insane.
Oh yeah, what are those machines called? I watched a whole YouTube. I went down to a
Yeah,
pachinko machine.
pachinko. Yeah.
Yeah, went down a YouTube rabbit hole once about how those work and stuff, and it's like,
Yeah, because you can't
wow.
actually put money in it. You have to put something else in it, and then you collect the money later on or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's all weird. It's kind of that weird sub-crime that exists
Yeah.
in Japan. It's like we tolerate crime, but it's organized. It's like, okay.
Well, yeah, that was always like the weird thing with Konami. It's like this used to be like one of the biggest video game makers in the world, and now they no longer make video games. How do they make money? It's like, well, they have like gyms and pachinko machines. And it's like, oh, so they're all criminals.
Yeah.
um. Let's see. So yeah, Sarno and Longbow are talking. Longbow says he used to be a bagman, so that's like sort of backstory for what he is. Which, he's not. I don't think he's supposed to be American. I think he's probably supposed to be from Mexico. So he's, I don't know where he was bagman at, but I'm guessing Mexico. But you never know. So
Yeah.
Sarno kind of lays out.
Toro's from like Puerto Rico, right?
I don't know.
I think that's his back because he's not an American citizen. Well, Puerto Ricans.
That's
technically,
they're part of you're citizen.
but he's like Spanish or something. He has like Spanish citizenship too.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, because I mostly know him for like, I mean, his biggest Mexico movie was being, he was the, he was in Traffic, right? He was like the main guy in the Mexican border scenes and stuff like that. So,
Yep.
and then of course, that, and then Sicario too. He's like some weird like former drug dealer Mexican special forces guy.
Oh no, he was the prosecutor in Mexico City.
Oh, okay.
They murdered that guy. They murdered his family.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, that's why he was such a dark person. It's like, are you eat God? It's like, whoa, okay. Who, the kids? I guess so.
um, but I hear they like hear the yeah. I think also you cut to like Parker like saying like that's a bag man. He's gonna make a deal for less, but he can't take it because the bag man's just gonna betray you. So here Sarno's like, I got $1 million for you, but he's like, it's just gonna be a setup. So he's like, nah. Also, if I like, so also Sarno's like, who's the brains of the operation, you or the kid? And he
Oh,
goes,
I love this
it's like,
line.
I don't think this is a brains kind of operation.
I love it when people recognize their own weaknesses. Like, yeah, I don't think this is really like that kind of outfit.
Which I think when he says that line, I think before he says that line, like Sarno offers them to get coffee, so he kind of Longbow keeps his gun out kind of quietly, hides it away as they go get coffee, and then eventually just puts it away as they like just have frank conversation with each other.
Yeah.
Then we kind of cut to a scene real quick where like there's a scene with Francesca where she's like obsessed with the ultrasound video, and now she's like, now I want the kid, but then she's also immediately showing her having an affair with Jeffers, and it's like, oh, what's going on here? Which I don't know, it's like it's weird. It seems like at the end of the movie, it's like she's the worst person in the world and she does nothing.
Yeah, she's the most awful character. At least everyone else was true to their own psychosis.
Yeah.
It's like not her.
And we cut back. Sarno and Longbow are sharing stories of the job. There's another great line here. He says, people want to be criminals more than they want to commit crime, which is like a fun line. I don't know what that means necessarily. It's like people just want to put on the facade that they're tough.
Yeah, everyone wants to be a badass, but no one wants to get paid. It's actually like very true.
Yeah. Which I'm guessing that's all like that's supposed to be like on Parker. Like that's his problem. Like he wants to act more like a badass than he is. So, and then we cut to a scene where Jeffers and Obex are trying to work out their own scam of how they can like kill everybody and take the money and act like everything. Yeah, they got the money, we got the kid, everything's good, but then they actually have the money. Which just like, which is weird because like you see these guys like they're so committed to their job they're gonna shoot a baby, but now it's like let's rip off our boss.
Let's do this too.
But it also goes back to James Caan's later lane, but like $15 million isn't money, it's something else. But well, I wrote that down. We'll get to it. But Sarno and Longbow part ways. They're basically promising they'll kill each other later on. Because I think that's what Sarno's line is like. He's like, "Who are you?" It's like, "Well, I'm the guy that like sometime down the road you'll feel a pillow over your head and a pop and that'll be it." So he's basically saying like even if you don't get the money, like I'm gonna have to kill you eventually, like because that's my job, because you dared to steal from some crazy rich man. Let's see here. Then Longbow walks into the hotel where like Robin is, and like he seems to make everyone uncomfortable when he walks in for some reason because he hears them like playing cards and they're laughing and he's like, what's going on here? He's like, he doesn't like that. And then they start to play hearts and it's all an analogy for like, you know, like how you like, you know, you want to have the least amount of points, but if you like play the long con, then you can like take all the points and then everybody else has to pay. Or if you know somebody's trying to shoot the moon, then you can like sacrifice yourself, which that like this is criminals. Criminals don't sacrifice themselves for the greater good. Like that's not how this works.
Talking about.
I'm probably doing the analogy wrong. It's probably like but that's just I took it straightforward. It's like I don't know if you have a better interpretation of the parts.
No, that's pretty much what I got out of it.
Okay.
I mean, I'm sure it's more artful because I tend to think in straight lines on some, when people get philosophical. It's like, oh, what nonsense are they trying to justify?
Yeah.
What evil are they trying to make good? So sometimes I miss the poetic license. It's like, well, that's just a lot. That's just horseshit to justify this or that.
Yeah.
So
Robin kind of like breaks down, explaining that like about like she's having the baby for money, but then she's changed her mind, and that the baby isn't Hale's. It's actually, well, did she say it's Painter's and hers, or is that just implied here? I can't
no,
remember.
she says it's the doctor
Okay,
Painter.
okay.
Yeah, I think she says those words in that order.
And then she has everyone touch her belly, which is like weirds out long bow. He's like, "What are you doing? That's
I
weird."
see they do that a lot in movies with like women like you meet.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I've never done that. Well, I mean, the kid I had, yes, because that makes sense. But yeah, I've never been like, let me put my hand like near things. It's like, what? You a psycho? But
Then we kind of Sarno meets with like Hale and like
she's also trying to manipulate
yeah,
people.
yeah, yeah.
So
Yeah, I think I mean that's essentially like why Longbow is like angry. He's like really he's angry at both of them, but he knows like she's sweetening him up for something to
yeah,
turn on him. Like that's what he can see. He knows that's going to happen, and he doesn't see that because he's like, cause Parker doesn't see that because he just thinks he has the upper hand because he's cruel. But it's like, well, I can be kind too. It's like I don't have to be cruel all the time. It's like it's a pregnant lady. What's she gonna do? um. So then we cut to Sarno meets with like Hale and his bodyguards. That's where we get the line where it's like, "I'm not like you fuckheads who shot at somebody who agreed not to do a crime."
yeah,
Hale agrees to do the money handoff, but everyone has like different ideas of how this should go because everyone's like, you can't just get out $15 million and expect that like everything's gonna go right. So, which I think like Sarno and Painter, the doctor, like they kind of have like a scuffle in the hallway because he's like talking about the money, and this thing kind of grabs him. It's like $15 million isn't fucking money. It's like $15 million. It's not like money is what you bring to the grocery store, or what you pull out at an ATM. $50 million isn't money. It's a motive with a universal adapter, which is kind of clunky, great line, but you understand what you mean. So.
Yeah, you have to follow that one. It doesn't come smoothly off the top. It makes sense once it's been explained.
Yeah. Then we cut to Jeffers and Obeck are trying to figure out how they're gonna like dump Sarno. This is also where we learn that this is where they figure out that Robin is Sarno's daughter. Because I think I missed the line earlier, but when Longbow and Sarno kind of part ways, they talk about like the future, and he's like, "Yo, when you get this age, you kind of got to start thinking about the future." He's like, "Oh, what are you doing?" And he's like, "Oh, well, like my daughter's kind of like working something out for you." And he's like, "Is it working out?" It's like, "Not really." So he's like, "Oh, Robin, his daughter. This is the whole plan."
Yeah.
This is Sarno's retirement plan. So yeah, then we cut to Parker talks about a job he did for a lawyer because he was gonna do time for some petty I think robbery or something like that, and this lawyer got him off. So he would because like this lawyer knew some like pedo who like I guess didn't get put away for anything, but he knows like no.
Also molested his son.
Oh, okay. That's important to know.
Yeah.
And so it basically has like, kill this guy, and then just like, and then like basically this guy like serves himself up on a platter where like the doors open. He's like covered in like pedo paraphernalia and stuff like that. It's like, well, this is the easiest job in the world. Like I get to kill this guy with no guilty conscience. Like, and he's talking about how like he was like really like savoring about to kill this guy, but then he sees this guy who's like, he's like, I'm a bad person, but this guy's evil. Like I'm not that. And then he sees this guy pray to God, and it changes his whole mind. It's like, well, what the fuck do you do when a monster prays to God? Like, what does that mean?
Which seems like kind of obvious. It's like, well, you make sure he meets God. He's going to a better place. I'm just the mechanism.
Yeah.
But, people don't think that way.
Yeah. Well, that's his contemplation is like if he kills this guy and he's asking for forgiveness at the last moment, like is he gonna get it? It's like what kind of world is that?
Technically, forgiveness before you die, you will be forgiven.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's like
Yeah, nobody
how
believes it.
no one's like, well, Hitler, like, right. Well, that's why suicide is always unforgivable because you can't ask for forgiveness, then shoot yourself because
Yeah.
you commit the sin after. But yeah, it's like, because you want to just get wrapped up with theologians like, well, if Hitler conceivably asked, and they always be like, well, he committed suicide, so he couldn't. But it's like, okay, what if Stalin asked for forgiveness from Christ? It's like, would he be in heaven? It's like, well, technically, yeah. Come on, man. It's not the most important spiritual question though you will face. So it's kind of like that's like that dismissive logic of like, oh, the George Carlin, like if you don't say a certain prayer in the Catholic faith by a certain time of the year, it's a mortal sin, but you cross the international date line. And it's like, well, wait a minute. You're coming up with very unlikely scenarios.
But apparently Parker is haunted by this prayer and he has to say it before he gets to sleep at night. So
Yeah. Saying the Lord's Prayer, yeah.
Which presumably he still killed that guy, right? that's
Well, I'm assuming, yeah, he did, but his penance is to say that prayer.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So then Parker's also talking about like bailing on the job, and then like Longbow's like, "What do you want to say goodbye to her?" He's like, "No, man, I think we should just leave." Like, there's that guy hanging out back, which he's talking about Abner, which we weren't sure if like because there's like this kind of moment where like Longbow like looks back and points the gun and where Sarno was, and he's kind of like disappeared. But then they're just like immediately on the corner, like hiding. It's like, oh, are they slick or obvious? And it's apparently they're obvious. But
yeah.
Then Longbow kind of says like, "Hey, I need my coat." So then Parker goes to go in the coat. Well, he sees Robin walk around inside, so he apparently knows what's going on there. And so he tells Parker to go get the coat. And at the last moment, he like runs and pushes Parker aside as the shotgun blast goes to the front door. And she's grabbed the trap shotgun from inside the door. And now that you know that, like, oh, she's Sarno's kid. Like, okay, she probably knows some gangster stuff too. So,
well, that's a carriage gun. That's a Stoger coach gun.
Yeah,
which is just like a double-barreled, short-barreled shotgun. You just break open and put two in. So yeah, those aren't hard to figure out.
Yeah.
Those don't have safeties and stuff. They're straightforward.
Yeah. But she has the willingness to fire it too. So it's like, she would have killed him.
Oh yeah, she fired through the door with one arrow. Like I don't know who's behind the door, but I'm serious.
Yeah, and they know she only has one bolt, like one shell left, but and Longbow plays like peekaboo with the hole in the door. She doesn't fire. No,
head appears because she's only got one shot left. So,
yeah. Well, also like when Longbow kind of like tackles Parker out of the way, we have this reveal that the coat was hanging on the van door, so it's like, okay, so he sent him to die. But then we also show like as Longbow gets back, Parker's got a gun into his chin, so it's like now everyone distrusts everyone. But then they get back to kind of like being, they're almost like cruel now. Like they can like, come on, just let us in, like like turn evil again. But then they just like hop in the car and drive off.
yeah.
And then so yeah, she comes out at the front door. She just tosses the shotgun back into the motel room. Oh yeah, we have a quick cut to Sarno. We see him loading the $15 million in the back of a truck, and then he just heads off into the night. Because now they're all in Mexico right now. So
yeah, I forgot to mention that. Yeah, they're in Mexico.
Because there's like a scene where she's like, it's a weird scene where like she's like laying on the floor against like the radio console, and like we see them as the radio changes, like they're listening to like news reports of like the shootout they had turn into like Mexican radio, and that's like now we're in Mexico. Yeah, Parker and Longbow leave, Robin leaves, and then the Mexico police show up, and the bodyguards show up. Abner shows up, and Painter is also there with the bodyguards.
Everyone's shown up at this.
The cops pull guns on the bodyguards after like they tried to pay them off because you can see Obek with like a handful of money, and I guess they didn't like that. So they're like, now that
Which I think is the only time in the history of Mexican law enforcement worked, from what I understand. But
I don't know, maybe think like, man, if that guy just got a wad of cash in his pocket, like, where's more money?
yeah,
Or they're just like met the only honest cops in Mexico.
the only ones, both of them.
Or the ones that haven't been had their family and life destroyed by a drug cartel. um then one of the cops gets sniped by Longbow. Parker's a spotter. I'm not sure what gun he has here. Does he just have his like?
He's using Israeli military industries Galil
Ah, okay, all right.
6.2 with a sniper scope on it. It appears later in the movie without the sand scope.
Okay.
Yeah, these were the guns the Israelis had to make from in like the 70s when they were embargoed for human rights. They're like, we'll just make our own gun and we'll base it around the AK-47 round. But you know, they didn't, because the Russians wouldn't sell them AKs, but it's selling bullets. So yeah, I know some guys that have those. They're heavy.
Yeah.
You ever handled an FAL?
Uh-uh.
Like those big heavy? Okay. Imagine a gun that seems smaller than that but weighs more. Weirdly, but it has to do with the materials they made it out of.
Now I've heard people say like those Galils are basically like the best AK-47, but I forget why.
Mm-hmm. Well, they use because South Africa has the most common ones you'll find in America are like the Vector arms, which is just it was made for South Africans, which are bigger people than Israelis, so they extended the barrel and the stock quite a bit. And it uses a straight magazine. It looks a lot. If you didn't know better, you'd think is like, is that an FAL? It uses that kind of magazine. Yeah. But I guess the feeding on that and the accuracy is a lot better.
Okay, all right.
It's a lot more consistent, and it's designed for even more abusive. You know, because the AK is infamously like you can just dip it in motor oil and fight in the desert with it. It's like, well, imagine a gun that's even better for that and a lot more accurate and made with much more quality in mind. So.
Because I know they have like the later version of it. I don't know if it's name only, but now they have like the modern version called like the Galil Ace, which has some interesting like what's that called, the bolt cover. They have like the bolt will like slide through this cover, and the slide will like slide back for every round. Like it's only uncovered to eject it, and then it closes itself on every round.
Let me go to the website.
Or the dust cover, that's what I mean. The dust cover like closes itself after every round.
Let me see because I think the same company that makes my shotgun makes I think that's IWI, right? Oh no, these are the Uzi people.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know if IWI, that might be a different company.
Huh.
Yeah, because these guys do the Tavor and the Uzi. So, well, the new Uzi Pro looks really sci-fi. Oh, not available for civilian sales. Boo. Anyway, go ahead.
Translation: we can't make a semi-auto version.
Yeah. We can't make it where it can't be quickly converted to a fully automatic
weapon. So yeah, a cop gets sniped. The Parker's acting as a spotter, which again, this is like, man, is this the skills they pick up as being petty criminals?
I mean, that would be cool if that was possible.
Obek gets killed in the encounter, but not just yet. I think Abner's shot, which he is, but he doesn't like react to getting shot by a rifle round, which maybe that's just his steel. That's his steel reserve of just loneliness.
Well, this guy
sadness.
was pointing guns at his head trying to kill himself. So at that point, once you cross that line, it's like, yeah, bullets don't affect me immediately.
Well, yeah, that's something I wanted. Do you think like the Khan character and or like Sarno and Abner, do you think they've been like lifelong criminals? Do you think these guys were like drafted in Vietnam and stuff like that?
I think they've known each other since they were young men.
Okay.
And I think Sarno is a slightly more successful version of that guy, because I can tell there is an amount of pity and respect in Sarno
Okay.
for Abner.
Well, I like. Do you think any of these guys have like served or vets somewhere, or are they just all
They would have to be to have
okay?
skill sets like that. I
Or
mean,
is it
just
just funner that they have these skill sets?
I mean, it is funner, but it's
Yeah,
unrealistic.
yeah.
It's like these people, because reacting to gunfire in real life, like it's like only military people have experienced that, and been told what to do actually, not just. I mean, lots of people have experienced it and they freaked out, which is a normal
Yeah.
human reaction to that. Only people in the military have been told, like, look, this is going to be loud, it's going to be hot, it's going to suck, and people are trying to actively kill you. That's terrifying. So I would assume these people, I would assume at least the older guys have a military background, and maybe the younger guys do too.
Okay.
They would almost have to, because there's no like criminal school. Like, you're going to be the Navy SEALs of the criminal underground. Like,
Yeah.
that doesn't exist.
Unless this is like, unless there's like some cynical thing about like this is how we, like criminals at this time or have too much access to information. They've all taught themselves like special forces tactics.
I mean, it would be smart. I've always told people, like, and I've talked to like the gang members in Detroit that like kill 30 people trying to get one guy. It's like, you need to learn trigger discipline, and you need to learn how to, what the effective range of a gun is. Firing into a crowd with a 9mm, though satisfying, draws a lot of attention, and oftentimes you don't kill the person you were aiming at, but you kill a bunch of other people who had nothing to do with it, which fosters retaliatory attacks or whatever. You've got to be a lot more concise in what you're doing. But somehow street level criminals are not receptive to that message, and I don't know why. It has something to do with honor culture.
Abner steals the cop car, and the other cop also gets killed. I think Jeffers shoots him. Then Jeffers, Painter, and Robin take off and they head south, which I don't like. Parker and Lombard are curious, like, why are they heading south? And then immediately Jeffers like, they're shooting at us from the north. I'm not going into the gunfire, so you don't know whether that's true or not. I don't know, or if this is.
Well, yeah, because put yourself in this situation for a second, folks. Somebody you can see pointing a gun at you and firing at you is frightening enough. Imagine someone you can't see, and people are just falling all around you. Like, you're going to do everything you can to get away from that.
Which, yeah, like when you see them fire back, they only have handguns, but like they point their handguns up really high to fire back, which I'm not sure if like how much you need to arc it in, but like it was somewhat more realistic.
It was creative. It's like, I'm lobbing this 9mm pretty flat shooting round. You don't really need to lob that one, but okay. I mean, I would be so scared. I'd be behind the car, like shooting up in the air, like just stop.
Obex is revealed to still be alive, so Parker and Longbow grab him, and then we show him like a cut to another scene where like Parker's like especially evil, telling like all the terrible things he's gonna do to them. But then what's revealed is like they basically have him like they're pulling him apart with like a come along. It's like, oh, that's awful.
Using it like a hillbilly engine hoist to just locate this guy's, which would be horribly painful, by the way.
And also stretching bullet holes he already has and stuff like that. So, so that's the end of Act 2. We got Act 3. Robin's like walking around a hallway and she's bleeding. It's like, well, this isn't good. And she's acting in lots of pain. A guy grabs her and puts her back in a room. We have Parker and Longbow kind of revealed to being at this hotel, which this is like a whorehouse or whatever or something like that.
Like a brothel. Yeah, it's a brothel. Yeah.
That's a better term, I guess, or less. I want. Painter's revealed as being the father, which again, I don't know. This is like a direct reveal rather than like you putting it together. Like they just say it out loud.
Yeah, no, it's not implied that he might be. He like the character is acknowledging, I guess.
The crew walk into the bar, which takes a while for everyone to run out, which is like a second gag because this happens at the hospital where everyone starts pointing guns at each other and everyone's just kind of like frozen in place. And weirdly, it's like Longbow's concerned about, hey, what about the people? And then Parker's like, hey, you idiots, you see all the guns here? Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
So they kind of do the same here, and everyone just runs out. Um. Uh. So yeah, yeah. Painter gives Robin a spinal injection because now he's got to give her a C-section. I think this is also the part where like Tay Digg gets like basically into his equilibrium mode, and it's like we're gonna pull that baby out of you now, Robin. It's like
Yeah.
really cruel and weird and sensitive.
It's like I'm going to say the most horrible things to you in a calm, reassuring voice.
um. And then we cut to Sarno finds Abner, who's dying in the cop car. But Abner
I love this scene.
but Abner just won't keel over. it's like it's like so it's like, he's like I'm dying, and he kind of like fades off, and then Sarno's like, oh, I guess that's that. And he starts to leave, and then like he calls him back. He's like, all right, I'll listen to you. He's like, I'm dying. He's like, and then he's like, hey Joe, I think I want to be alone right now. It's like, and Sarno's like, that's a good idea.
Yeah, and he looks at him because it's that classic James Caan, like, okay, yeah, it's a funny idea. But it's so sad because it's like this is this guy's last moment in life, and Sarno's just like, I gotta get on with business. Whatever's, I mean, yeah, let's take a few minutes, sure,
Yeah.
to commiserate, and then Abner realizes like this guy, I just want to be alone. This guy doesn't give a fuck. It's a sad, poignant, and truthful ending.
Yeah, and this is a guy who's like ready to kill himself when we first meet him, and now he's just kind of like not really dying. Yeah, I guess he's dying as much as he can with dignity, but not by his own hand. So
Well, this is why I think like Breaking Bad, because you remember when Mike Ehrmantraut, when he gets shot
yeah.
by and the main character, what's his name escapes me, of course.
Walter White.
Yeah, Walter shoots him, and then he's like, Walter's trying to talk to him. It's like, can I just please be alone to die? I feel like that there seems to be some DNA between this scene and that one.
Yeah.
Not quite exactly the same thing. As James Caan, like, okay, I'm gonna pretend to do the nice thing, but I'm gonna have my hand on the door handle.
You're an inconvenience.
Okay, can I go? Thank you.
Then we cut back to Parker and Longbow move in on the delivery room. There's like a shootout. Parker gets shot in the leg. Also, I love here like they have like just a perfect horizontal line that Longbow is shooting through the which that I mean you're saying that's a heavy gun, but as far as I know, it's like there's no way he's firing them perfectly in a straight line, but it's fun.
Well, that's semi-auto fire.
Oh,
too.
it is? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, it's stated that was semi-auto fire because fully automatic, it would have been hole. It just would have cut a line.
Yeah.
It would have been like, So yeah, because it was mentioned in something I watched. It's like, yeah, he only fired that in semi-auto.
I mean, the reality is they're probably just like the person setting up the squibs. It was just easier to set it up that way, or
You don't think he was firing real bullets to the wall?
Jeffers runs in the delivery room, and the hotel owner like fires a shot, and then Jeffer fires back and kills that guy, and then and Painter's got his hand in Robin's belly, and he like hops on top of her to protect her, and it's then we cut to the bagmen show up, and they throw the bags full of money on this fountain that's like not working. It's like a sand fountain right now.
Yeah, so this movie like it's like, oh, it's where John Wick got this idea. It's like only this class of character will lay siege to the building now. Bagmen, all the bagmen will gather and attack, but they'll throw the money out in an obvious ambush.
Yeah. Then we have Parker and Longbow come into the delivery room. Jeffer holds Painter hostage, but then Painter pulls out his gun and shoots Jeffers in the throat. He just kind of like sits in the corner, like holding his throat, and then just kind of eventually gives up and dies. Like, well, this isn't how I planned this to go. So.
And it's the same Dr. Bag gun he had before.
Yeah, he gave the gun back.
Yeah, it was a 380 PPK, a Walther.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those guns look cool. I wish they were just chambered in a bigger round.
Yeah. What shotgun does Parker have in this shootout?
I think it's an. Let me look. I believe it's an 870 Wingmaster.
Okay.
Let me see.
It's a cool looking shotgun. It's very tactical looking here, but also kind of looks like kind of rustic too in a weird way.
That's a Remington 870.
Okay, all right.
It's just in a matte black finish.
And it's got like an extended. It's got like a slightly extended tube too. I think.
Yeah, let's see what it says about it because it always talks about it. Yeah, it's basically like a border patrol shotgun where the tube's as long as the barrel.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the bagmen use like older Mossbergs with like what they call the riot stock. They don't hold as many rounds, but they're kind of got the old style wooden stock.
Okay.
But yeah, he's using an 870 with like a plastic stock and a plastic foregrip, so that makes it look more tactical because it's all.
And then Painter also needs to finish the C-section, so like everyone takes a long moment of reflection as they're like weirded out by the scene of what's going on and what needs to happen and like what they're doing.
I have a lot of sympathy for the characters in this scene because I've actually seen a C-section performed in real life, and it's like, whoa, that's a liver. What the hell? What are you doing? Because a lot of people think a C-section is just like, oh, you just slit the belly open at the top, and it's like the baby comes out. It's like, no, you got to like take organs out and stuff, and make way here, and then pack all that shit back in. It's a nightmare. Especially if you're like me, because I'm not a blood and guts guy, and when you turn around and see that, you're like, oh, put her back together, please.
Yeah, Longbow takes an extra moment to reflect, and then there's like Parker like puts his hand on the doctor. I don't know if he's gonna use him as a hostage or if this is like we got to go get the money and we're gonna go die to do it. I don't know what's your read on that moment when he puts his hand on the doctor?
It seems to be the same reaction almost everyone, including Tay Diggs, had earlier to like, it's like what's going on here is absolutely horrific. Even though I'm going to go take a shotgun to somebody's face here in a second, this is really screwing me up because it's like women, it's like life, it's birth, so it's all different to these
do you think he's using the doctor to like block the vision of the C-section?
Yes, I absolutely do.
Okay.
Because it's weirded all these guys out. It's like we're just used to pulling people apart and shooting them. This is like something's going on here.
This is real.
It's like stripping down an engine, but it's a human. And we're not sure if we like this. And then later on, like, you know, James Caan's reaction is like, well, that's my daughter.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, could you put her back together, please?
So yeah, then they decide they need to leave to go get the cash and like, well, we're gonna die. That's kind of like the read on the room. It's like, we're not gonna get that money, are we? It's like, no, but we gotta try though. Like, what if we make it? Yeah, who knows?
I love the next scene.
This is where we have like Sarno's moving around, and here he opens the delivery room door. He's caught off guard because that's his daughter with a hole in her stomach, and a guy reached in there. Yeah. And then Painter tells him to leave, which is kind of a role reversal. It's like, oh yeah, I'm useless in this situation. This has nothing to do with me. I can't help. I can't do anything. So he just leaves. So, so then we have Parker and Longbow like just sit at the bar, which just has a perfect tunnel to look at the money, which like isn't that far away, but you know, it's as furthest away as it could be.
It's a great scene. Casual, like somebody's taking I think one of these guys is taking a shot to the leg at this point.
Yeah,
they're both just like drinking tequila, looking at that money, and as was Benicio del Toro's character Longbow say,
there's always free cheese on a mousetrap.
Yeah, it's clearly an animal. And it's like, how could we make this weirder? And we're about to find out.
So yeah, they go out there, they get in a back and forth shootout with like, I don't know, like 12 bagmen.
Just a bunch of old pensioners with 38s and old shotguns.
Yeah. And Sarno's kind of like he's like he has like he's like in the upper floor window. He's kind of using the different windows to shoot at him. He kind of pops in and out and takes his moment. And the other guys are kind of like they're taking cover too, but they're also popping out a lot more. So yeah, they take a lot of the bagmen out, but they also take a bunch of shots to different parts as they like lose like they lose like movement in their limbs as they keep going on.
Now they do have bullet resistant vests on, but one thing I like about this shootout is this is like the ultimate shootout in the movie.
Yeah.
It's like they're reloading a lot, which I
Yeah.
always like to see. Like, how are we going to reload when only one hand works,
Yeah.
and how are we going to reload under? Because it's not it's sometimes it's tricky to reload a gun if you're not scared
Yeah.
or hurt, let alone when you're frightened. It's like, come on, damn it, how does this work?
Yeah, and they just got 1911, so they need to reload a lot.
Yeah, 7 shots and you're done.
Parker makes a leap into the fountain and then he screams and revealed as like his arm is like it's just filled full of broken glass, which I don't think the bagman did that. I think that's just general debris that's left in this fountain that's unattended.
Yeah, it's a horrible scene though, because the guy like screams louder than I mean, he's been shot a couple
Yeah.
times at this. But it's the glass that does it. And the scene they show, whoever did the special effects, it's like, yeah, that's pretty grisly.
Yeah, they show him pulling like you see the glass like pull out from underneath skin and stuff. It's like, oh yeah, that's uncomfortable. And then he basically can't use that. Yeah, because I don't think he uses the shotgun after that because now he basically has only one working arm and he has to throw the money on his back with that one good arm. But this is where like they're just like have like comically endless amounts of like they're reloading, but they have endless amounts of magazines to reload with.
Like I said, 20 magazines on them.
And you see like different way. Yeah, one they shove it between their legs to reload. Like Parker's like ripping one out with his teeth to reload.
Yeah.
There's like one guy they have like pinned down for a moment. And he's like, "All right, they shot everything," and then he just pops out and they just unload 2 clips into him or 2 magazines
Into his chest. Yeah. It's the most directed 1911 fire I've ever seen.
And then Parker grabs the money, so he just has like he's got his bloody arm and puts one on his back. Like see, there's one guy pops out with a shotgun. And it seems like the money's blocking some of these shotgun rounds, but then that guy gets shot by Longbow. But then Parker just gets shot in the leg, the other leg that hasn't been shot yet, from Sarno from the window. Because at this point, I don't even think Parker has a gun anymore.
No, he's out.
He's got a bad hand. The other hand has money in it, so he's just got to make this. He's got to make this
and
move.
Sarno's shooting him with a snub nose 38, probably 150 feet away. It's like, what shot? Wow! Holy crap!
Then Longbow like tries pulling Parker and the money too, which there's a moment before they even go out. He says like, "Remember, we die alone" or something like that. So
yeah,
he's like breaking his own rule here. It's like, no, we're gonna try to make it together, even though they really haven't shown that much loyalty in this entire movie. Other than like,
yeah, Parker was pointing a gun at his head. Like
and then Sarno gets behind them, but Longbow like he kind of like turns around and kind of like pulls the gun out of his armpit, but then there's just looks at the gun as no bullets in it anymore, and he doesn't have any magazines left, and he just kind of like waits there as Sarno just like shoots him in the leg like 3 times, and then he falls over. Which at this point it seems like Parker's dead and Longbow's like dying, but they're both just dying. They're still alive. Like we never really truly see them die, but it's just like that's left up to you. It's like, do you think they survived this bullshit or not?
No.
Let's see. So yeah, Sarno grabs the money. Parker and Longbow are still kind of alive. Now here they're just kind of like, oh, who are those 2 characters of the balcony and the Muppets?
Oh, the critics?
Yeah. They're just kind of like offering like platitudes from the distance. Like, yeah, we don't have any guns. We don't have any money. It's like, but we'll offer some advice from 2 petty criminals that got into too deep on this. Where I was like, you know what family looks like. You just by looking at them. It's like, what are you doing? And that's where it's kind of the fun where it's like, it's like Sarno has weird respect for these guys, even though like he's supposed to kill
Yeah, he
them.
didn't shoot him in the head. He shot him in the leg.
Yeah. So. It even implied like, I'll kill you later on, but it's like, today you get to maybe live.
We don't know what happens. It's not a total downer ending, but we're pretty sure they're going to die.
Sarno calls in.
Or be in a Mexican prison forever.
Yeah. Or you just get recruited by a drug cartel, you know.
This is where Sicario started.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Sarno calls in an ambulance to go get help his daughter, and then Sarno hears a baby crying, and he's like about to light a cigarette when he hears the baby cry. He's like, "Oh, I'm stop smoking." You know, I can't
Yeah.
smoke in front of the baby. And then like it's also the baby crying also kind of like brings Parker and Longbow back to life a bit more. Uh, because they feel like, well, we couldn't get the money, but at least the baby's alive.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if they you know, they didn't really make a great situation for that baby to be born, so I don't know what they're happy about.
They're happy because he's not dead.
Yeah.
You got to take your wins when you can get them. I
Yeah.
guess.
We didn't kill a baby today.
Yeah.
Uh,
Today is a good day to die.
We see Robin's getting taken out on like oh, what do you call those things? A gurney or whatever.
Gurney, yeah, stretcher, whatever.
She's alive, so it's like okay, that's good.
Let's recount the bagmen that are left. Sarno calls the ambulance up, and it's a Mexican ambulance. It looks like the Ghostbusters ambulance, like that era of ambulance. Because at first I thought, what is this, Ghostbusters? Like, oh no, those were the ambulances at one time. Like, oh, you're right. Yeah.
Well, they leave, and it's like I think all the bagmen are dead except for Sarno because the EMTs grab the money as they leave. Which again, I don't know if that's payment or he's got to take that. I guess he's got to take that back to Hale or he'll be dead. But yeah,
I'm assuming is because considering this operation went sideways so much, he might be taking a tax on that.
Yeah,
he might be like, hey, I had to spend like $500,000 of that money to get us out of Mexico. You're just gonna have to eat that.
and then also like
kind of like Anton Chigurh at the end of No Country for Old Men. It's like, I've recovered almost all of your money and been shot and been through hell. I would appreciate not being treated like the bearer of bad news. 90% of your money back. But of course, that said, like, what's that guy? Javier Bardem can only deliver dialogue like that.
But also presumably like Robin's supposed to get $2 million, but then that can be up in the air if Hale learns that it's not really his kid, but it would be his genetics if Painter is his kid, but
be the grandfather essentially is what I understood of it, unless I missed something in this 2.5-hour movie. Just gunfights with interesting dialogue in between.
Yeah. And I think you're like long bows. They're like bleeding on the ground and can't get up. He says like, "What are you gonna tell your God now?" And then we get.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Gonna talk to God now.
And then we have Parker gives like a voiceover about like not wanting pity, and I forget, I didn't write down what he said. I like the last line where it's like every prayer will be answered in the order they are received, and then we cut to like the last reveal where it's like Hale and Francesca in like darkness, and then she reveals she's pregnant with presumably Jeffer's baby. So it's like, right. Oh yeah, she's the ultimate evil.
How's that going 9 months?
So yeah, that's the end of The Way of the Gun, a bleak, cynical movie that, in the right mood, is a great movie. So
yeah,
it's good that Christopher McQuarrie got to make more things because he's good at it. So
yeah, the mythology of this movie is very punk rock. It's like Christopher McQuarrie supposedly like, I want to make a movie that Hollywood won't make.
Yeah.
Everything I write and put into this movie is like everything an executive will say no to. Because this was released by like Artisan Pictures. Like it's,
they must have got tossed around or something, or they don't exist anymore. Because I got a Lionsgate opening, so I'm guessing they own the library to Artisan or something.
I don't think Artisan exists.
Yeah, so we're sending a probe into space containing the supercut of scenes from the imperfect collection that is the Verhoeven Effect. Nathan, what scene from this movie are we shoving into space?
This was a really tough one. The most memorable scene that I would like is the 78 or 81 Suburban and Drive as the mobile cover vehicle, because it encapsulates everything about this movie that I love and hate. It's like cool, weird skill sets that like don't seem, there's no reason these should be present, but yet they are. It's a very different way of looking at things. Again, I don't know how much they credited Sam Peckinpah for being a spiritual influence to this movie, but it definitely, this
Yeah,
reminds me of a Peckinpah film,
yeah, definitely, yeah.
because things like that are just like odd, weird, and like make perfect sense once you understand what's going on. So I'm going to say the low speed, self-driving cover vehicle.
And you can find us at Letterbox username VHE. 1 out of 5 stars. What are we giving The Way of the Gun?
I'm going to give The Way of the Gun 4 stars for dialogue and concept, but it's really a 2-star movie masquerading as a 4-star movie. Just the dialogue and some of the acting carries it through. But as far as the shape and the texture of the story, it's like, oh, this is nonsense. But man, I like watching these guys
Yeah,
talk,
yeah.
and they're having fun shooting each other.
It's more
So
clever than it is dumb, and
yeah,
that's like like again, like with these movies, like you like clever criminals even if they're terrible people. You just like seeing people being clever.
yeah.
um,
So yeah, in anyone else's hands, this is a 2-star movie.
yeah.
But for here,
uh,
it's engaging.
yeah. You can find our podcast at verhoeffect.com. You can find listener support there. You can support us at a monthly stipend that are 99 cents, $4.99, or $9.99. Cancel anytime. You can rate our podcast whatever you want. You can rate us whatever you want. The only thing the algorithm listens to is the highest rating. So give us the highest rating because you control the algorithm. The algorithm doesn't control you. And you can find us at Twitter at Verhoeven Effect. You can find us at Blue Sky Social at Verhoeven Effect. And you can find us on Facebook at Verhoeven Effect. And you can find us on YouTube at American Greed Factory and watch both this and that show live and unedited. So for the Verhoeven Effect podcast, I'm Conlon.
And I'm Nathan.
Goodbye, America.